Housing inequality is the difference in the quality of housing that exists within a given society. A prime example of housing inequality is slums. So what is a slum? A slum is a city within a city. They have distinct characteristics that show poor quality housing, and lack of adequate living space and public services. Normal housing conditions have no more than 3 people sharing the same room, have easy access to safe water in sufficient amounts at an affordable price, access to adequate sanitation in the form of a public or private toilet shared by a reasonable number of people, and or security of tenure that prevents forced evictions. The UN Habitat defines slum households as a group of individuals living under the same roof who lack durable housing of a permanent nature that protect against extreme climate conditions and sufficient living space. Slums are areas neglected by the government. They lack governmental support in basic services such as sanitation, clean water, and legal property rights. Because of that, they're usually created on vacant, abandoned land. The lack of governmental support caused people to stay in slums for generations, stuck in a cycle of neglect and poverty, causing the number of slums to only increase. A slum is one of the extreme examples of housing inequalities because slums provide low-cost housing to those who live on low income.
During the 19th century, isolation of the Indian residential areas by the British caused plague, driving Britain to move industries to Mumbai's outskirts. Dharavi was then created there. The original residents were primarily fishermen. Since then, people within the slum have become potters, textile workers, and other secondary sector positions, and the population is over 1 million. Rent in Dharavi is as low as 185 rupees per month, as reported by BBC, while Mumbai's average rent ranges from 18 to 99,000 rupees per month, showing the gap in wealth, which also fuels the gap in quality of housing. Residents find it very convenient to live in Dharavi, as it is close to rail lines for their commute. According to the Indian Express, the Dharavi redevelopment project has been on the table since 2004. However, policy changes, real estate market fluctuations, and politics have put off the project even longer. One of the problems seems to be the government not being flexible enough for developers to create a viable design plan and have ample time to place bids. According to DNAindia.com, residents felt the initial 225 square feet allocated to each residence in the development plan was insufficient, pushing the requirement up to 400 square feet. The developers only wished to expand to 350. The people wish for the government to take more part than private developers because this ensures the land will be redeveloped for their benefit, not for a private developer's benefit. $2 billion has been put in from bids from around the world to demolish Dharavi and put the residents in high-rises, which would cut off locals' economic ties, as seen in the Khyber slum. This expands income inequality, putting those with low economic status in an even lower position. Locals only wish for improvements to their current conditions, such as sanitation and infrastructure. Based on concerns and setbacks from past experience, the government should settle on a size for each residential plot and should work with developers to create a design plan which is suitable to work with. Ideas of a Dharavi community land trust have emerged, creating a group of landowners, residents, and neighborhood associations which can work with developers and government officials to ensure that development plans are in the best interest of residents, not for capitalist purposes. Ultimately, Mumbai-based redevelopment team Plural became the most favored team for redevelopment. As Plural team member Jasmine Saluja said, "We've had proposals on Dharavi since the 1970s, but the problem is that they've never included the people themselves. In countries such as France, though they are not third world, progressive taxation has reduced income inequality. This approach could work in India, since the wealth gap is very large and contributes to slum growth."
Kibera is an infamous slum located in Nairobi, Kenya. According to International Medical Corps and UNHABITAT, United Nations Human Settlements Program, it is the largest slum in Africa. More than 55% of Nairobi's population lives in slums. Over 700,000 of those live in Kibera. The primary concern among those in informal housing is the cost of housing. Kibera residents require low-cost housing as they have an average income of only 10,000 Kenyan shillings. Housing in Kibera is affordable enough that residents only have to pay 1,000 shillings for housing, which is more affordable than those outside of slums. Because those housing prices are lower than average, living conditions are also below average. There have been few plans for slum improvements, and those which have been executed tend to benefit only the middle class who are able to bear the cost of housing. Surveys show that 93% of slum residents believe the government is not doing a sufficient job in making slum improvements, and 90% believe it is the government's responsibility to accommodate the poor with quality housing. The Kenyan government has yet to fully understand that politics and income inequality are the reason for the lack of improvement in slums. The power of local-leveled officials are unregulated and corrupted. This hinders all forms of progress for any substantial improvement within the slums. Public officials lose the patronage systems from which they have benefited if they improve slums, meaning that existence of slums benefit politicians. Another type of corruption was exemplified in 1994, when local officials sold land from the slum to developers in order to build middle-class residencies, which deprived slums residents of the housing they were expecting.
Many affordable houses in the slums are mud and iron sheet shanties to which many who can't afford higher living find unfavorable. Families seeking low-cost housing within their means oftentimes inhabit places that have lack of basic physical infrastructure, sanitation, water, power, and transport, creating indecent living. Because the state of these places are largely ignored, a greater participation by corporate bodies in fulfilling their responsibilities to the people, or people doing their jobs, would go a long way in alleviating the social needs of slum residents. Another solution that we came up with is progressive taxation. Progressive taxation is meant to tax the wealthy more and the lower quintiles less. This tactic can fund redistribution programs or welfare, which puts more wealth into the hands of those who need it more. Therefore, higher taxes for the wealthy being channeled into the right programs will help to close the wealth gap and increase the quality of living for slum residents.
The things I say and do